Guys, what's going on? Today I've got a great topic that a lot of different strength coaches talk about, and it's something that a lot of basketball players may not understand fully, and that's testing your vertical jump. So at Strive, we have 4 different ways of testing the vertical jump, and I'm going to be going through them. But what's more important is what the data gives back to you to tell you what you're deficient in or what you're good at, and how your strength training or plyo training can be directed specifically for you depending on what kind of numbers come back. So the first thing that we're going to do is we test what we call the non-counter movement jump. So I've seen a lot of different coaches coach it differently, but the way that we do it is that we get an athlete to come down, hold a quarter squat for 3 seconds, and then get up as high as you can. Now, we're fortunate enough here at Strive to have a just jump mat as well as the Vertex. So for these ones, I like to see them use the Vertex so I can see how high they reach, and I just feel like Vertex for the most part is probably a better piece of equipment for this particular jump. So again, we're taking what we call the stretch shortening cycle out of the equation. We're loading it, right? Okay, we're holding for 3 seconds and then we're getting up as high as possible. So that's what we call the non-counter movement jump. Then the counter movement jump, which basically utilize a little bit more of the stretch shortening cycle. I'm just going to do a regular jump. Some coaches coach having your hands above your head, coming down, driving fast, throwing your arms back, and then getting up as high as possible. So that's what we really think of as a vertical jump, okay? Standing still, making sure that you're not adding a step into that jump. So what that basically does is, again, is it utilizes what we call your stretch shortening cycle to see how fast your muscles can contract and relax as quickly as possible to get you to translate that force vertically. Then from here, we look at our depth jumps or our 4 jump test. So for the depth jump, we usually use, we can either use the just jump mat or we can use the Vertex for this one. For me, I prefer the Vertex again, even though the just jump mat gives you different things like RSI and all that kind of information, which can be useful. But for this one, I want everybody to know that there's a great deal of skill involved in these 2 jumps, because not every athlete, okay, especially basketball players who are in high school, have come in and are very, very familiar with the depth jump. And so basically what I do is I use this as a rough estimate for them to kind of get an idea of how well they're able to, how good their reactive strength is. And reactive strength is basically very simply transitioning from what we call eccentric movement to concentric movement, or when the muscles are lengthened into contracting, okay? So that's just a little bit of basic background on that. Or if I'm not comfortable doing the depth jump with an athlete for whatever reason, then I will get the just jump mat out and we can test our 4 jump vertical jump test. Again, there are limitations to this because the mat isn't very big, and sometimes the athletes, not sometimes, but all the time, the athletes will miss the jump and jump forward or backwards. Perfectly normal. But it does give us a good idea of ground contact time and then the average jump height for the 4 jumps, which I do like. But again, if the athlete is not familiar with doing this, then again, for me, it's just a rough estimate to how to really put the program together. Then the last and final one, which I would say is the most appropriate and most basketball specific, would be our approach jump. So for our approach jump, I like to see them go from the free throw line and jump, and then a full approach, which basically means take as much of a run up as you need and then jump. And it really tells me a lot about how they strategize to convert horizontal force into vertical force, which is very, very interesting, and I feel like it's very applicable to basketball, even though very rarely on the court will that actually fully happen. Usually they're jumping to the side, jumping backwards, their arms are up, but that's a different story. That's a different story. This definitely does happen in basketball though. Now, the most important thing, guys, is, okay, so we've got all these numbers. What does that mean? What do all these numbers mean, and how can I put together a good strength and conditioning program to really see gains in their vertical jump on the court, not only in tests, but on the court? So when we look at non-counter movement, usually the difference between the counter movement and non-counter movement should be 12 to 15% difference. And that basically means that the counter movement jumps should be about 12 to 15% higher, depending on what research you read, than the non-counter movement jumps. And that makes sense because I'm loading and then exploding and then getting up. Whereas for the non-counter movement jumps, I'm pretty much in a squat, Okay, I'm loaded, I'm not really able to get that elasticity involved because it's more muscle driven, it's more dead strength, it's more, again, it's more muscle driven. So if, in this case, I see that their non-counter movement is better than counter movement, yes, you will definitely see that, okay? So just to give you guys an idea, you will definitely see that. Then we want to work on things that are assisting them with utilizing their strength training cycle. Things like pogo jumps, things like low depth jumps, things like Olympic lifting variations, speed squats, okay, that could be with weight or without weight, and light loaded jumps. That's subjective to everybody depending on their experience and their capabilities. So again, if this jump, 1, 2, 3 jump is higher than down and up, that jump, then we do want to be focusing on more elastic things in order to put the body in the synchronization together a little bit better. Then when you look at counter movement jump, to non-counter movement jump, say for example, this is far higher than 15%, this might be 20, 22% higher than the non-counter movement jump, which is also possible because basketball players are usually quite good at using the stretch running cycle. Then we want to have them on a solid strength training program where we're working on a lot of muscle-based stuff. That's your basic squats, rear foot elevated, split squats, single leg squats, deadlifts, you name it, it's probably in that program because we want them to get stronger because they already have a good foundation of being able to utilize that strength elastically and explosively. So we want to make sure that that strength can back them up when they come down. So when you look at the depth jump and the forward jump test, if it's much worse than the non-counter movement and counter movement, then they need to absorb force a little bit better. And I want them to be working on things that have minimal ground contact time. That could even be sprinting. That's probably a lot of different depth jump variations, probably not too high of a box, but different depth jump variations. That could be an explosive Olympic lifts, but those are things that we want to make sure that they learn to absorb force extremely quickly, okay? Because as I'm jumping off the box, gravity is pulling me down and it's forcing me to absorb force very quickly. So that's what we're basically looking at. Then the last one, guys, we're gonna be talking about the approach jump. And is the one that matters most to sports, especially basketball or volleyball, because it's all about mechanics here. And when we think about mechanics, this one is the hardest because you have to translate a sprint or run into a jump. And that transition is quite hard. And trust me, I've seen all different types of strategies in order for kids to professional athletes try and get up, and some of them work very well and some of them don't work so well. But I need to say that one strategy does not fit all. You can work with physics, you can work with biomechanics, and there usually is some good room for improvement if you work with that. But again, I have seen some phenomenal jumpers strategize their jump from a jump stop and then get up as high as possible, which I would not always recommend, but guess what? It works for them. So when it comes to the mechanics, what we do here at Strive is we watch them run and we watch them jump, and then from there, if it looks like something that needs a lot of fixing, we reverse engineer it. So say for example, it's a single-legged jump. We'll just have them take one step, okay? One step, 1 foot back, and then jump off that foot, and just getting them used to jumping off that 1 foot. Then from there, once they get it, which they usually get pretty quickly, then we'll add 2 steps. Then we'll add 3 steps. Then we'll add 4 steps. And this can be part of their warm-up so that they naturally get a feel of what it should feel like. Now, there's a lot of different things like how much momentum should they be putting in, when should they be going fastest, but that's a discussion for another day because I wanted to basically show you guys how we go through our vertical jump test protocol and what that data is implying for us to take it, whether it's to apply metrics on the field or whether it's into the weight room. We need to make sure that we know that data from our athletes in order to create the best possible program for them. So guys, any coaches out there, I'm more than willing to listen to what you guys have to say and learn from you guys in terms of how you take this data and translate it into the weight room to get your athletes jumping higher. See you next time, guys.